Welcome to a journey through Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray, a novel that explores the boundaries of art, beauty, and morality. We begin in the heart of Victorian London, where the scent of roses fills the air and the city's distant roar hums like an organ. Wilde's world is rich with sensory detail, inviting us to step into a studio where creativity and tension intertwine. Here, the artist Basil Hallward gazes at his masterpiece, a portrait of the enigmatic Dorian Gray. This opening scene sets the tone for a story where art and life collide and where every brushstroke carries meaning. As we move forward, we'll unravel the relationships and philosophies that drive the narrative, starting with the preface that challenges our perceptions of art and morality. Oscar Wilde's preface to the novel is a manifesto on art. He asserts that the artist's aim is to reveal art and conceal the artist, suggesting that art should stand alone, free from moral judgment. Wilde provocatively claims, "There is no such thing as a moral or an immoral book. Books are well written or badly written, that is all." This radical stance invites us to consider art as something pure, not to be tainted by ethical concerns. The preface sets up the philosophical foundation for the story, challenging readers to look beyond surface judgments and embrace the complexity of beauty and meaning. As we transition into the narrative, Wilde's words echo, reminding us that the story ahead will blur the lines between art and life. Inside Basil Hallward's studio, the air is thick with the fragrance of flowers and the quiet buzz of bees. The setting is lush and almost dreamlike, with light summer winds stirring the garden and shadows of birds flitting across silk curtains. Basil's studio is not just a place for painting, it's a sanctuary where beauty reigns and inspiration flourishes. Lord Henry Wotton, lounging on a divan, observes the scene with a mix of amusement and curiosity. The studio's ambience reflects the novel's themes: beauty, transience, and the interplay between nature and art. As Basil prepares to reveal his portrait, the tension between artist and subject becomes palpable, foreshadowing the emotional and philosophical conflicts to come. At the center of the studio stands Basil's full-length portrait of Dorian Gray, a young man of extraordinary beauty. The painting is described as a work of skill and grace, capturing Dorian's essence in a way that seems almost magical. Basil's admiration for his subject is evident, but so is his anxiety. He fears that he has poured too much of himself into the portrait, making it a reflection of his own soul rather than just Dorian's likeness. Lord Henry encourages Basil to exhibit the painting, arguing that it would elevate his reputation. Yet Basil resists, hinting at deeper, more personal reasons for his reluctance. This moment marks the beginning of the novel's exploration of identity, influence, and the power of art. Lord Henry Wotton, with his languid wit and sharp observations, introduces a philosophy that will shape Dorian's fate. He believes that beauty is fleeting and that intellect, while valuable, often disrupts harmony. Lord Henry's cynicism and charm make him a compelling figure, one who values reputation and influence above all. He teases Basil about his attachment to the portrait, suggesting that artists are vain and that beauty should be celebrated, not hidden. This scene establishes Lord Henry as a catalyst, someone who will challenge and provoke both Basil and Dorian. His views on art, society, and morality are provocative, setting the stage for the conflicts and transformations that will unfold. Basil reveals the name of his subject, Dorian Gray, but hesitates to share more. He confesses that he values secrecy, believing it adds romance and mystery to life. Basil's reluctance to introduce Dorian to Lord Henry stems from a desire to protect the purity of his relationship with Dorian and his art. The conversation turns to the nature of friendship and the dangers of influence. Lord Henry, ever the provocateur, jokes about the necessity of deception in marriage and the complexities of human relationships. This scene deepens the intrigue surrounding Dorian, hinting at the transformative power he holds over Basil and the potential consequences of Lord Henry's involvement. As Basil and Lord Henry stroll into the garden, their conversation shifts to the nature of friendship, enmity, and influence. Lord Henry claims to choose friends for their looks, acquaintances for their character, and enemies for their intellect. He argues that fidelity and virtue are often matters of circumstance rather than choice. Basil, more earnest and introspective, challenges Lord Henry's cynicism, insisting that genuine connection is possible. The interplay between their philosophies highlights the tension between sincerity and artifice, setting up the dynamics that will shape Dorian's journey. The garden, with its sunlight and daisies, serves as a backdrop for these contrasting worldviews. Basil confides in Lord Henry about the profound impact Dorian Gray has had on his art. He describes Dorian as a muse, someone whose presence inspires a new style and vision. Basil's admiration goes beyond physical beauty. He sees in Dorian the potential for a new school of art, blending passion and perfection. The harmony of soul and body, he believes, is essential to true artistry. This revelation underscores the depth of Basil's feelings and the transformative power of Dorian's influence. As the conversation unfolds, Basil's vulnerability becomes apparent, hinting at the emotional risks inherent in artistic creation and personal attachment. Basil explains his reluctance to exhibit Dorian's portrait, revealing that every portrait painted with feeling is a portrait of the artist, not the sitter. He fears that he has exposed the secret of his own soul on the canvas, making the painting intensely personal. Lord Henry laughs off Basil's concerns, but the painter's anxiety is real. This moment highlights the vulnerability of artists, who risk revealing their innermost selves through their work. The portrait becomes a symbol of both admiration and fear, embodying the complexities of creation and self-expression. As Basil struggles with his emotions, the stage is set for the dramatic events that will follow. Dorian Gray enters the studio, bringing with him an air of innocence and charm. He is described as wonderfully handsome, with scarlet lips, blue eyes, and golden hair. Dorian's presence captivates both Basil and Lord Henry, who immediately begin to vie for his attention. the introduction is lighthearted with playful banter about philanthropy and music. Yet beneath the surface, there is a sense of anticipation. Dorian is about to become the focal point of both artistic admiration and philosophical influence. This scene marks the beginning of Dorian's transformation as he is drawn into the orbit of Basil's art and Lord Henry's ideas. Lord Henry begins to exert his influence over Dorian, introducing the idea that all influence is immoral. He argues that to influence someone is to give them one's own soul, making them an echo rather than an original. The aim of life, according to Lord Henry, is self-development and the realization of one's nature. Dorian listens, intrigued and unsettled by these radical ideas. The conversation marks a turning point as Dorian becomes receptive to new ways of thinking about himself and his place in the world. Lord Henry's philosophy challenges conventional morality, setting Dorian on a path of self-discovery and potential danger. Lord Henry's words about temptation and self-denial resonate deeply with Dorian. He suggests that resisting temptation only makes the soul sick with longing, and that the only way to rid oneself of temptation is to yield to it. Dorian is bewildered by these ideas, feeling a strange new influence at work within him. The scene captures the psychological impact of Lord Henry's philosophy, as Dorian begins to question his beliefs and desires. Music and words become intertwined, creating a sense of magic and danger. This moment marks the beginning of Dorian's internal transformation as he contemplates the possibilities of living life fully and without restraint. As Dorian stands motionless, absorbing Lord Henry's words, he experiences a revelation about his own life. He realizes that he has been walking in fire, unaware of the passions and possibilities within him. The sense of beauty in youth becomes overwhelming, and Dorian begins to see himself in a new light. Lord Henry, recognizing the moment, remains silent, allowing Dorian to process his thoughts. This scene captures the power of influence and the vulnerability of youth as Dorian's worldview shifts dramatically. The stage is set for the choices and consequences that will define his journey. Basil finishes the portrait, declaring it his masterpiece. The painting is a stunning likeness of Dorian, capturing his beauty and vitality. Lord Henry congratulates Basil while Dorian gazes at the portrait with a mix of wonder and anxiety. For the first time, Dorian becomes acutely aware of his own beauty and the fleeting nature of youth. The portrait serves as a mirror, reflecting not just his appearance but the deeper truths about his life and desires. This moment is pivotal as Dorian's sense of self is transformed by the realization that his beauty will not last forever. Fronted by the portrait's perfection, Dorian is struck by a sharp pang of pain. He laments that he will grow old and ugly while the painting remains forever young. In a moment of desperation, Dorian wishes that he could remain youthful and that the portrait would bear the marks of age instead. He declares that he would give anything, even his soul, for such an arrangement. This dramatic wish sets the stage for the supernatural elements of the story, foreshadowing the consequences of Dorian's desire. The scene captures the intensity of emotion and the tragic longing for eternal youth. Tension between Basil, Lord Henry, and Dorian reaches a climax as Dorian's despair threatens to destroy the portrait. Basil, hurt by Dorian's reaction, considers destroying his masterpiece, but Dorian intervenes, pleading for its preservation. The emotional conflict underscores the complexities of friendship, art, and influence. Ultimately, Basil agrees to give the portrait to Dorian, acknowledging the depth of their connection. Lord Henry, ever the observer, comments on the irrationality of human behavior, adding a touch of humor to the scene. The resolution sets the stage for the next phase of the story as Dorian takes possession of the portrait and its symbolic power. After the emotional turmoil, the characters settle into a more relaxed atmosphere, sharing tea and discussing plans for the evening. Lord Henry suggests going to the theater, while Basil prefers to stay with the real Dorian, the subject of his art. The conversation is lighthearted, filled with banter about fidelity, youth, and the nature of relationships. Dorian chooses to accompany Lord Henry, signaling his growing attachment to the older man's philosophy and lifestyle. This scene marks a shift from introspection to action, as Dorian begins to embrace new experiences and influences. Before Dorian leaves with Lord Henry, Basil issues a heartfelt warning. He urges Lord Henry not to spoil Dorian or influence him too deeply, fearing that his art and life depend on Dorian's purity. Basil's words are filled with emotion, reflecting his deep attachment and concern for Dorian's well-being. Lord Henry, amused by the warning, dismisses it lightly, confident in his ability to charm and influence. This moment highlights the protective instincts of Basil and the seductive power of Lord Henry, setting up the ongoing struggle for Dorian's soul. Narrative shifts to Dorian's social interactions, revealing his charm and popularity among London's elite. He's invited to lunch at Lady Agatha, where he meets a variety of characters, including the Duchess of Harley and Sir Thomas Burden. The conversation is lively, filled with wit and satire about American marriages, philanthropy, and social responsibilities. Dorian's presence is noted for its beauty and innocence, making him a favorite among the guests. This scene showcases the social dynamics of Victorian society and the role of appearances in shaping relationships and reputations. Lord Henry visits his uncle, Lord Fermor, to learn more about Dorian's background. The conversation reveals Dorian's tragic parentage, a beautiful mother who died young and a father killed in a duel. Lord Fermor's anecdotes provide context for Dorian's character, highlighting the themes of romance, loss, and inheritance. The scene is filled with humor and social commentary, as Lord Henry navigates the eccentricities of his uncle and the complexities of aristocratic life. This background information adds depth to Dorian's story, making his journey more poignant and compelling. Lady Agatha's luncheon, the conversation turns to social expectations and responsibilities. The guests debate the merits of American women, philanthropy, and the East End of London. Lord Henry's wit and paradoxical statements provoke laughter and controversy, challenging conventional views on morality and charity. Dorian listens attentively, absorbing the ideas and attitudes of those around him. The scene illustrates the pressures and contradictions of Victorian society, where appearances and reputation often outweigh genuine virtue. As Dorian becomes more involved in social life, the influence of Lord Henry and others begins to shape his identity. Lord Henry expounds his philosophy of pleasure, arguing that the only way to regain youth is to repeat one's follies. He suggests that mistakes are the only things one never regrets, turning the praise of folly into a playful and provocative theory. The guests are charmed and amused, while Dorian is captivated by Lord Henry's ideas. This scene highlights the allure of hedonism and the dangers of living solely for pleasure. Lord Henry's influence grows stronger, as he encourages Dorian to embrace new experiences and reject conventional morality. Dorian Gray becomes increasingly fascinated by Lord Henry's ideas and personality. He listens intently, feeling as though he is under a spell. The conversation at lunch is lively and imaginative, with Lord Henry charming his audience and Dorian absorbing every word. The scene captures the power of charisma and the vulnerability of youth, as Dorian is drawn deeper into Lord Henry's worldview. The stage is set for Dorian's transformation, as he begins to prioritize pleasure and beauty over morality and responsibility. Luncheon ends with the arrival of reality, as the Duchess's carriage awaits and the guests prepare to depart. Lord Henry is invited to dinner, and the conversation shifts from philosophy to practical matters. Dorian, still captivated by Lord Henry, asks to accompany him to the park, preferring his company over Basil's. This moment marks a turning point, as Dorian chooses Lord Henry's influence over the stability of Basil's friendship. The intrusion of reality serves as a reminder that choices have consequences, and that Dorian's journey is just beginning. A month later, Dorian is found reclining in Lord Henry's luxurious library, surrounded by art and beauty. The room is described in rich detail, reflecting the opulence and sophistication of Lord Henry's lifestyle. Dorian waits impatiently for Lord Henry, feeling sulky and restless. The scene captures the transformation in Dorian's life, as he becomes more immersed in the world of pleasure and aesthetics. The library serves as a symbol of Dorian's new environment, where art, luxury, and influence reign supreme. Lady Henry enters the library, introducing herself to Dorian and engaging in a lively conversation about music and parties. She is described as a curious and untidy woman, always in love with someone and full of illusions. The interaction is lighthearted, with playful banter about Wagner's music and the cosmopolitan nature of artists. Lady Henry's presence adds a touch of humor and eccentricity to the scene, highlighting the diversity of personalities in Dorian's new social circle. As she departs, Lord Henry arrives, ready to continue his influence over Dorian. Lord Henry offers Dorian advice on marriage, warning him never to marry a woman with straw-colored hair because they're too sentimental. He suggests that men marry out of tiredness and women out of curiosity, but both are disappointed. The conversation is filled with aphorisms and wit, reflecting Lord Henry's cynical view of relationships. Dorian listens, amused and intrigued, as Lord Henry continues to shape his attitudes and beliefs. This scene underscores the influence of Lord Henry and the shifting values in Dorian's life. Dorian reveals that he is in love with an actress named Sybil Vane. He describes her as a genius, someone who captivates him with her talent and beauty. Lord Henry dismisses the idea of female genius, arguing that women are a decorative sex and never have anything original to say. The conversation is playful but tinged with skepticism, as Lord Henry challenges Dorian's romantic ideals. This scene marks a new chapter in Dorian's life as he pursues love and passion influenced by Lord Henry's philosophy. Narrative returns to the theme of art and autobiography, with Basil lamenting that artists should create beautiful things without putting their own lives into them. He criticizes the tendency to treat art as a form of autobiography, arguing that the abstract sense of beauty has been lost. Lord Henry counters with the idea that passion is useful for publication, and that poets are less scrupulous than painters. The conversation highlights the ongoing debate about the role of personal experience in artistic creation, reflecting the novel's central themes. Basil reflects on his relationship with Dorian, describing it as a source of both pleasure and pain. He admits to flattering Dorian and finding joy in their conversations, but also notes that Dorian can be thoughtless and cause him distress. The dynamic between artist and muse is complex, filled with admiration, jealousy, and vulnerability. Basil's attachment to Dorian is deep, and he fears losing the connection that inspires his art. This scene explores the emotional risks of artistic relationships and the impact of personal attachment on creativity. Lord Henry argues that genius lasts longer than beauty, suggesting that people overeducate themselves in the hope of preserving their place in society. He describes the thoroughly well-informed man as a dreadful thing, filled with useless facts and lacking genuine insight. The conversation contrasts the enduring nature of intellect with the fleeting nature of beauty, highlighting the anxieties and aspirations of the characters. Dorian's fear of losing his beauty becomes more pronounced, reinforcing the central conflict of the story. Lord Henry delivers a passionate speech about the value of youth, urging Dorian to realize his potential while he still possesses beauty and vitality. He warns that youth is fleeting and that time will eventually rob Dorian of his charm. The speech is filled with vivid imagery, comparing beauty to sunlight and moonlight and emphasizing its divine right of sovereignty. Dorian listens, open-eyed and wondering, as the reality of his mortality sinks in. This scene captures the allure and tragedy of youth, setting the stage for Dorian's desperate wish for eternal beauty. garden scene is rich with symbolism, as Dorian observes bees, butterflies, and flowers. The natural world serves as a metaphor for the cycles of life and the inevitability of change. Dorian's fascination with trivial things reflects his attempt to escape the anxiety of deeper emotions and thoughts. The scene underscores the contrast between the permanence of nature and the transience of human beauty. As Dorian contemplates his fate, the symbolism of the garden becomes a poignant reminder of the themes of growth, decay, and renewal. Dorian's obsession with the portrait grows, as he realizes that it will remain forever young while he ages. The painting becomes a source of jealousy and despair, symbolizing the unattainable ideal of eternal beauty. Dorian's wish to trade his soul for perpetual youth marks a turning point in the story, introducing the supernatural element that will drive the plot. The portrait's power lies not just in its artistic merit, but in its ability to reflect and magnify Dorian's deepest desires and fears. Dorian expresses jealousy of everything whose beauty does not die, including the portrait. He laments that every moment that passes takes something from him and gives it to the painting. The emotional intensity of the scene is heightened by Dorian's tears and his sense of loss. Basil and Lord Henry react differently, Basil with concern and Lord Henry with amusement. The scene captures the tragic consequences of Dorian's obsession with beauty and the inevitability of change. Conversation turns to the question of ownership, as Lord Henry offers to buy the portrait and Basil insists that it belongs to Dorian. The debate reflects the complexities of possession, value, and personal attachment. Dorian's insistence on owning the portrait underscores his desire to control his own fate and preserve his beauty. The scene highlights the interplay between material and emotional value, as the characters negotiate the meaning of art and friendship. Characters share tea, reflecting on the events of the day and the nature of human behavior. Lord Henry comments on the irrationality of man, while Dorian and Basil continue to grapple with their emotions. The scene is relaxed but tinged with tension, as unresolved conflicts linger beneath the surface. Tea serves as a symbol of comfort and tradition, contrasting with the upheaval of the characters' inner lives. The moment of reflection provides a brief respite before the story moves forward. Lord Henry suggests going to the theater, while Basil prefers to stay with the real Dorian. The conversation is playful, filled with banter about fidelity and the nature of love. Dorian chooses to accompany Lord Henry, signaling his growing attachment to the older man's philosophy and lifestyle. The scene marks a shift from introspection to action, as Dorian begins to embrace new experiences and influences. The plans for the evening foreshadow the adventures and challenges that lie ahead. Basil pleads with Dorian not to go to the theater with Lord Henry, fearing that his influence will be harmful. Dorian hesitates but ultimately chooses to follow Lord Henry, reinforcing the theme of influence and personal choice. Basil's concern reflects his deep attachment and protective instincts, while Dorian's decision marks a step toward independence and self-discovery. The scene captures the emotional stakes of the story and the consequences of Dorian's action. Narrative shifts to Lord Henry's world, revealing his lifestyle, principles, and social connections. He's described as a hero to his valet and a terror to his relations, embodying the eccentricities of English aristocracy. Lord Henry's philosophy is out of date, but his prejudices are entertaining and insightful. The scene provides context for Lord Henry's character, highlighting his role as a catalyst and provocateur in Dorian's life. The interplay between tradition and modernity adds depth to the story. Lord Henry learns about Dorian's parentage from his uncle, uncovering a story of romance, tragedy, and inheritance. Dorian's mother was a beautiful woman who died young, and his father was killed in a duel. The narrative is filled with anecdotes and social commentary, providing context for Dorian's character and motivations. The scene adds depth to Dorian's story, making his journey more poignant and compelling. The themes of love, loss, and legacy are central to the novel's exploration of identity. Luncheon at Lady Agatha's highlights the contradictions of Victorian society, where appearances and reputation often outweigh genuine virtue. The guests debate philanthropy, American marriages, and social responsibilities, with Lord Henry's wit provoking laughter and controversy. Dorian listens attentively, absorbing the ideas and attitudes of those around him. The scene illustrates the pressures and contradictions of social life, setting the stage for Dorian's transformation and the influence of Lord Henry. Lord Henry's philosophy is filled with paradoxes, challenging conventional views on morality, pleasure, and youth. He argues that humanity takes itself too seriously and that laughter could have changed history. The conversation is lively and imaginative, with Lord Henry charming his audience and Dorian absorbing every word. The scene captures the power of charisma and the vulnerability of youth, as Dorian is drawn deeper into Lord Henry's worldview. The stage is set for Dorian's transformation, as he begins to prioritize pleasure and beauty over morality and responsibility. Dorian Gray becomes increasingly fascinated by Lord Henry's ideas and personality. He listens intently, feeling as though he is under a spell. The conversation at lunch is lively and imaginative, with Lord Henry charming his audience and Dorian absorbing every word. The scene captures the power of charisma and the vulnerability of youth, as Dorian is drawn deeper into Lord Henry's worldview. The stage is set for Dorian's transformation, as he begins to prioritize pleasure and beauty over morality and responsibility. As the story progresses, Dorian's choices and relationships become increasingly complex. The influence of Lord Henry grows stronger, while Basil's attachment remains deep and protective. The themes of art, beauty, morality, and influence continue to shape the narrative, leading to dramatic consequences for all involved. The journey of Dorian Gray is a cautionary tale about the dangers of vanity, the power of influence, and the pursuit of pleasure. As we look ahead, the stage is set for further transformations, conflicts, and revelations, making the Picture of Dorian Gray a timeless exploration of the human condition.